comes another one over here. Here comes another one.
Where?
I'll close the doors there. Just watch your legs so that you can blanket the doors. What is it?
UFOs.
They're not making any noise.
Have you got it in focus?
I think so.
I don't believe this. What is that? Exactly the same way that where the other one's going.
The UFOs.
They're not very high up.
This is the second one. What a beautiful craft.
No noise, no nothing. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
You know, when the first one come across, I seen the other one come up just over the trees. And I was going to say to you, there's another one coming. I thought, I'll wait until it gets a bit... Look at that. No noise, no nothing. This is UFOs. Certainly looks like it. It's two out of the west of Grafton. The top two. This is the three of them.
It's going to play almost straight above me. This is one of the orange-yellow alien probes. They're a very radiant orange colour. This one is virtually directly overhead. They're only about 60 centimetres or 2 foot in diameter and about 10 inches high. They travel very slowly at low altitude. These particular objects have been seen all around the east coast of Australia, in Tasmania, and sometimes they travel in formation, mainly just one object at a time. Sighting time, observation time is usually around 7 minutes, and they seem to just switch off after they've crossed over town. They totally dematerialise, and I don't know where they go, but they dematerialise and then go. You'll see on the video. I had to lay down on the ground on my back to get this one in video because it was directly overhead. That's why it's a little bit shaky, but I had to lay on the ground.
Here comes a red one. I'm flashing my laser at it. Coming in from the east. Towards the northwest. A major sighting over Grafton. Place the torch in him. I've got to be wide angle, they're that close. Incredible, absolutely incredible.
This next sequence, just watch the bottom object near the date. You'll see it dematerialise and rematerialise. Not this section here, this is a star, but in this inverted pyramid formation, watch the bottom object just above the date. You'll see it dematerialise and then rematerialise back into the formation. What's the 17 near the 17? Just above the 17, see? It's dematerialised and rematerialised back in a set coordination within the formation. I'll show that section a couple more times. This formation of 4 yellow-orange UFOs was only about 500 metres, half a kilometre away from me in the north, coming from the east, across from the Clarence River, cutting across the north of my location, heading towards Junction Hill. Now take a note of the angle of the 2 bottom ones. The one on the far left bottom is like the peak of the pyramid. The pyramid formation is tilting forward slightly. Now take note of the angle of the 2 bottom ones. The pyramid formation turns, it tips up. Note the perfect position of each object in its set coordinate. Absolutely locked into the formation, no variation at all, and moving very, very slowly. Whatever they were doing, this formation must have amplified the equipment, or had something to do with whatever particular thing they were analysing or observing at this particular time. They're absolutely silent. An amazing piece of technology. When I was viewing the formation through the camera, I found myself tilting my head on the side as trying to maintain the formation in the same position in the viewfinder, and I found that my head was tilting on the side as the formation was tipping up. So you'll see how I had to straighten the camera up. That object is Jupiter, just coming into the picture. You can see how slow the formation is working. This is only, at this stage, probably a little over half a kilometre away from me at this stage, and you can see how slow they're moving using Jupiter as a comparison. See how the bottom two are tilting up? The angle has changed. The whole formation tilted as it went past. Now, see, it's tilting again now. I had to straighten. I didn't realise at the time that it was tilting so much. I was trying to view it through the viewfinder to hold it steady, and look how much it's tilted now from when it was first observed. Glimpse of Jupiter on the bottom. It hasn't been moving very fast. Look at the tilt on it now, once I've straightened the camera back up level. It's incredible. Perfect triangular formation. Inverted pyramid. These four objects went further to the northwest, and they flashed a few times, blinked a few times, and just totally disappeared.
That's the hospital in the foreground. It's behind a large tree. Come out into the open in a second. It's in the open now. Appears to be heading east. Northeast. Could be heading back down south again. I can't see it visually, only through the camera. Going behind trees. Coming in from the west. This was one of 3 of these UFOs in the one night. It's turned and heading southeast. This object just switches off and totally disappears. Going out. Beyond the light, it's in the north. Going to the east. Behind trees. Look at that over there.
Oh, what's that?
Exactly. Yeah, it's gone. Orange UFO. This particular orange UFO was a double one. There were two objects, one above the other, all operating as one. It was absolutely brilliant, and still caught off the video showed the two objects, one above the other, working as one. That's zoomed in slightly, but this was an incredibly bright object. If you look closely and stop frame it, you may be able to see the two objects, one above the other. You could see how radiant the light was by the intensity of it. They're a very radiant sort of light. Very hard light to describe, but radiant is the best word that I can figure to explain the brilliance of them. They're a type of a plasma light. They seem to be a plasma. It's almost if you could imagine the light not being a hot light but a cold light. It's very unusual. Amazing technology again. Coming towards
Just come inside, buddy.
going towards Junction Hill towards the northeast.
Just get the tripod for me, please, Viv. It's just near the door there.
This object was heading straight for me. A lady from in town rang me and said, there's one coming in your direction now. So I went straight out, and here it was, just above the trees over the backyard, about 70 metres south of me. And as soon as I started to film it, it did a sharp turn and started to head west. And at the moment it is heading west. It turned into the clearest bit of sky I have to observe. It just happened to turn just before it approached over my house. Quite unusual.
Very slow. Below the clouds. Probably about 3,000 or 4,000 feet. It's starting to blink now. It's going to go out. Gone. No. It's gone now. It's just disappeared. Struth. That's bright. It's shaking. It's incredible. I can't stop shaking. just been inside. Come out to try the camera, and this is what we see. Going to the south, right over Grafton City. Oh, I can't stop shaking. It's one of the brightest ones I've ever seen. Here I am, thought they were gone. Starting to fade out, it's a long way out now. Probably over Armadale Road, out past Abattoirs. Where is it? Incredible sight. Right down the right. You don't have time to get a tripod half the time. Can't see it visually, only through the camera now. It's a long way away. No, I've lost it. There's an orange UFO coming west boundary of Grafton City, heading north. Just gone out. V formation of UFOs. Wow. That's UFOs. That's UFOs. That's UFOs. That's UFOs. That's UFOs. That's another orange UFO right over Grafton. It's just changed direction towards the west. This is about the first one seen in about a month. Does it seem to be one behind the other? No. Maybe not. Directly over Grafton now. Seems to have gained altitude a bit. Turned around and going back south. It's blinking, it's going to go out. Below cloud. It's going to disappear, you watch. Just on. Yeah. It's definitely turned and gone south again. Still below cloud and blinking. Seems to be gone. Got it blinking all over the place, look at that. God, there's got to be half a dozen of them. I'm keeping the camera still. Whoa. Wow. What have you heights? Hang on. In the northern sky, about 80 degrees overhead. Very high altitude. Flashing unusual. It's heading east. That just appeared out of strobing light. It's a secondary strobe after the main one. It's different to before. Heading east.
Last speaker of the day's events, and I have great pleasure in introducing Barry Taylor from Grafton. And about 2 years ago, actually, I was up there for a conference at Lismore, and I got to know him a little bit, and he's been interested in UFOs since 1971. He's an avid sky watcher. When it's not raining, he's out there every night with a video camera, and that's probably the reason why he obtained some absolutely interesting, I'm sure you'll find, images captured on his camcorder during a big flap they had there in last year in April 1998. And he's obviously going to talk about that and show you this bit of footage he's got over there. His current work is leading towards specialist computer image enhancing of UFO video and photographs. And he also has a personal UFO webpage, and he communicates with many overseas researchers. I'm not sure whether you have time today to tell you about a little thing he showed to me about 2 years ago, and that was something about maybe a Egyptian headdress or sculpture on the moon. Because I was interested to know more about that. If he wants to mention that again, that'd be a really good ending for the show. So, with great pleasure then, I'd like to introduce you to, from Grafton, once again, Barry Taylor, and go and show some really good stuff.
Thanks very much, Bradley. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We've seen a great deal about abductions and the abduction phenomena, which is a major part of ufology as well. But this evening I'd like to share with you some of my personal UFO sightings, particularly last year between April and October. But they do go back till about 1996 in the Grafton area, and it seems to be a UFO flyover point, a corridor. When they're going up and down the east coast of Australia, they seem to fly over Grafton parallel to the coast. And we have a gentleman up the back here that got his information off the internet who's going to work with me when they come back again. I'll notify him to see if we can find out when they leave the Grafton area, what area they're seeing down the coast further, so that we can try and get a fix on their actual flight path, because they may be going to the Antarctic, and this is what I want to try and prove. So I've got about an hour of video. This is mainly the video footage is from the sightings of last year between June and October. And the still photographs I took during the UFO flap in April, I used two 35mm cameras with colour film, and the video camera I had at the time wasn't very good quality with night vision, so I didn't use the video camera at all of any UFOs during the April flap. And that was a flap. That was every 20 minutes, half an hour or 3/4 an hour, there's V formations, going north or south. So I'll tell you about that later, it's just amazing. But I used 35mm camera with 1,400 and an 800 ASA colour films, hoping, you know, one night I'd do. I took a total of 34 photographs. The 6th of April, I took probably a dozen. I raced into town to get them processed. Next day, wow, what have I got? And I get the photographs back, nothing on that one, nothing on that one, nothing on that one. Oh no, I've missed them, you know. But I kept the photos, I didn't throw them out. But what I mean is, I took them at 30th of a second, f4, with about a 200mm lens, trying to capture the still frame of the object when it was flying over. And some of them were flying at incredible speed. I'd estimate probably 15,000 kilometres an hour, some of them. But there was other ones that were just coasting probably 70 or 80 kilometres an hour. And I'm trying to capture these in pitch black night time at a 30th of a second, just to stop frame them. So that covers the April photographs, and I've got a slideshow of those that last for 30 seconds each, and I'll try, during that 30 seconds, I'll try and explain to you a bit about the image, and I'll point to it with the laser and point out some features that I find interesting on them. But I wanted eventually with those photographs scan them in at a higher resolution so I can get a much finer and clearer image of what's on there. Some of them I'll probably dispose in the future because maybe nothing will come out of them, and others look extremely interesting, which you'll see them, but they're very pixelized because of the digital processing that I had to go through, because they were enlarged up quite a bit, and I was trying to just get the best possible image I could, but I had to drag the images out of the emulsion of the film because there was nothing on the photo. And it took me 4 months to do these slides, what you'll see here tonight. Had to learn how to operate the 3 different lots of software and find the images. But we got something anyway. And then April I moved flat to a different part of town, and the UFO flap was continuing. I thought it had finished during April. And okay, I'll just leave it at that because that's where the video footage comes into it. But to start you off, to give you an idea of the types of craft that I've been seeing, it's not only Grafton, it must be other places up and down the coast, because they come from somewhere, they're flying extremely high altitude mostly, and they're going somewhere else. So if you're interested in seeing UFOs, I suggest that you keep in contact with the UFO groups or emailing services, find out when the UFO activity is happening and go out there and have a look, because if you're persistent and patient, you'll see them yourself. Later on in the question time, maybe I can explain to you just a few little tips that I've learned during sky watching and videotaping UFOs, because they're very, very elusive, you know, and you have to train your eyes and be ready, because sometimes I'll explain that in question time if necessary. But just to give you a bit of an idea of some of the objects, back in 1996, that's when it really first started for me in Grafton. I was laying down in bed and just looking out the big picture window, and this boomerang formation of 12 to 14 large yellow objects were going at a fair altitude, just cruising. And the whole formation was surrounded by a white haze. And each of these objects was quite large. I estimated at the time that the formation from tip to tip would be the same as 5 jumbo jets at the same altitude. So it was a massive formation of these objects. Then later on in 96, there was the big, looked like an individual boomerang-shaped craft. I'll explain the difference between boomerang and V formation in a minute. But it was, if it landed on the ground, it would be covered best part of a football field. It was that big. And it was made up of hundreds of small white lights. And I had one of these pass over the top of me at low altitude. I'd estimate somewhere around 150 foot. And it was incredibly enormous, and these hundreds of white lights
just going over the top of you like this without a sound. It was eerie. 2 nights later, I saw the same thing again, a little bit higher, a little bit further to the west, but only half the left-hand side of the boomerang was illuminated, so it looked like a lopsided boomerang. The whole thing was hundreds of little white lights, but only half the left-hand side was illuminated. When I saw the UFOs this year, this particular year, I put an article in the local newspaper, UFOs buzzing Grafton, because I saw them over the central business district with a witness. It took about 12 seconds at low altitude. And then I went out on that one night, 6th of March, I think it was, 16th of March, I'll just forget now. But this boomerang formation, this huge object, went in between 2 trees just above rooftop, about 2 to 3 houses away from me, and I could see it. I took 2 photographs, because when I thought they're buzzing Grafton, I'm going to get a photo of this if I can, and I took 2 photographs, but that didn't turn out. But the whole formation of little white lights went in between the 2 trees, kept on coming. That's how huge it was, and you could see it through the tree, and then it continued on into the open again, and it would have been extremely low altitude, as I say, just above rooftop, going just the west of the showground, heading south. And 2 or 3 other people had seen it in Grafton, and it was also reported, because I put a newspaper report in with my phone number, and I got reports coming in from all over the district. And that particular object, type of object, was seen in Casino, Kyogle, and a lady in Sydney rang me. So this craft must have been cruising up and down the east coast of Australia at low altitude, backwards and forwards. And then in '97, I was at work, and the fellows at work were pointing out to this Venus up in the sky. They're all there pointing, and I hadn't told them that I was into UFOs at this stage, and I said, "What are you looking at?" And they said, "Oh, that bright light up there." I said, "Oh, it's probably a UFO." Ah, come on. Anyway, they're looking at Venus. It turned out to be Venus. But anyway, come smoko time, I'm looking for Venus again, and over the top of one of the buildings came this silver white, brilliantly illuminated orb, a round orb surrounded by a white halo at low altitude, just sort of not very fast, and I yelled out one of the workmates, "Come down, look at this." So anyway, it came around just to the little bit to the west of work, only probably 70 metres away from us, and altitude of probably 150 foot again approximately. But it was only about a metre, maybe a little bit larger than a metre in diameter. And I watched it for 12 seconds, my workmate watched it for 6 seconds, and I didn't say it was a UFO, I said, "What do you think it is? What do you think it is?" And I don't know. Anyway, as it went away, it sort of sped up and shot out further to the east. It accelerated away and did a curve towards the east. So that night I got home and I said, maybe if they're around today, they'll be around tonight. So after dinner I loaded my video camera up. No sooner walked out the back door, and here's one of the big orange plasma ball type UFOs just drifting past. Less than 1,000 foot altitude, extremely slow. So I went out and I started to video that. I've got some footage of that. And my partner yells out, "Hey, there's another one coming." Second one, exactly the same path, same speed, beautiful reddish, fiery orange object. I don't know what it was, but it was incredible. Probably a diameter of about just approximately 7, 8 feet in diameter. Quite large, but just slightly. I've got 8 minutes of video of that altogether. When it went over the rooftop, almost directly overhead, I ran out the front and continued to video it, because you never know what they're going to do. If you're going to video UFOs and you see them, always get as much as you can, because they can do anything. So I went out and it faded on and off a few times and then disappeared in the distance over the Pacific Highway, and that was it. That was another type of craft, and then those particular objects were seen all over Australia, and it was known worldwide that Australia's having a lot of these orange UFOs seen. They've seen them in Victoria, and actually they were on the news one night. They were all out in Victoria in the streets there watching them.
similar sort of craft, or whatever they are. And then come April, because after that, knowing that there's UFOs coming over Grafton on a regular basis, I started sky watching, putting more time into sky watching, because that's the only way you'll see them, you know. So come April, I was out, must have been about 6:30, I think. It might have been just about 7 o'clock, I think, in the evening, fairly early. I noticed this white haze coming in from the west of town. And as soon as I focused my eyes on it, I could see the little white illuminations in it, being the UFO crafts themselves. Anyway, they come in town, they seem to be up at an angle like that, because like I could see them all like looking at them this way, so they were flying one on top of the other apparently. Only fairly low, and as they come into the western boundary of Grafton, they levelled out into a formation that was a flatter formation like this. And they were still low, and I could see the disc-shaped formation of them. Like they call them in America hockey puck. They're curved at the bottom and curved at the top. That was the shape of them. The whole formation, there was about a dozen objects in it approximately, and travelling at rapid speed. But I focused on them. I didn't have my camera, it was just inside the door. I focused on one in the centre just to try and, because you haven't got much time, just to see, get as much information as I can from them. And it shot out, went to the end of the formation and shot back forward again. And the whole formation, every single individual object in that formation, I'll demonstrate with my hands their flight characteristics. With that plane, we glide down because we need the air above and below the wing to get our lift. But with these things, I'll just demonstrate with my hands the way they flew in this tight formation of 12 objects. Just like that. Just like that. They weren't bouncing like this. Each individual one was working individually. And that amazed me, because they were such a tight formation, moving at such a rapid speed, at least 2,000 kilometres an hour. They travel 9 kilometres in 12 seconds or so. Sorry, about 9 kilometres, 9 to 12 I think it was. Extremely fast. But it was as if each individual object knew exactly what the other individual objects were going to do. For that one to come out and come like this and back in, how did he know one of the others wasn't going to come out and hit him, you know? It's as if they're working with the same mind, like schools of fish and flocks of birds. When one turns, they all turn. They seem to operate like that. They're so aware of what every other individual craft is doing that they can do all these strange manoeuvrings, and that's not the end of it. And they seem to be, the communication between each craft must be so amazing, it's fast as what the mind can think it'd have to be. They're not sitting there with foot and hand controls like we fly our planes. It's too highly advanced and technical to be able to fly like that, the way I've seen them fly, and it's got to be done from the mind somehow. As if they're all flying with the one mind. It's hard to explain, but I think you know what I mean. So after that, I made sure I had my camera in my hand. So if you're ever outside looking, you always have a camera in your hand, no matter what it is, because an example of the speed, a normal Sydney to Brisbane aircraft will fly at about 35,000 feet over Grafton, and it takes over 2 minutes to get from overhead to where you can just see it. The V formations of UFOs do that distance at a greater altitude in 5 seconds. And our aircraft are doing, 800 or 1,000 kilometres an hour. So these UFOs are doing 15,000 kilometres an hour approximately. So that's extremely rapid. So that doesn't give you much time if you want to photograph them or observe them, you know. But there was a lot of coming into, that was April, I got the photos there, and I've explained a bit about that. So when I moved house a little bit further north of town, I thought, well, that April flap was pretty good, you know. I got all this work on the images on the computer, I'll try and get what I can out of those, but I still skywatched. And then June till the end of October, I had to be out every night,
because I didn't know when they were going to come back. I mean, they were there all the time, you know. So there was V formations were 5 to 7 objects. Now, just to give you a demonstration just with my forearms, if you're reporting them to another group or you're discussing it with someone else, the difference between boomerang shape and V formation, because it does make a difference to researchers once you get the information in, because the V formations are for a particular reason why they're getting V formation, and there's a particular reason possibly why they're getting the boomerang formation. Boomerang formation is anything from a slight bend, just not too sharp a V. A V formation is a much tighter formation. Now, I've seen them at high altitude and one at extremely low altitude in the V formation. There must be, and the objects in that group, when they're flying like that, they're nearly always surrounded by a white haze. It's almost like they got first gear, second gear, cruise speed, hyperspeed, warp speed. You know, they've got different speeds, and the characteristics that I've noticed seem to change slightly when they're doing these different speeds, being the colour of the objects and the haze around them. So depending on what speed they're doing, or more or less what gear they're in, depends on the characteristics or the visual features of the objects in the group. The V formation seems to fly in 5 to 7 objects at a time, and they're very close together, but they don't buff it up and down like I explained in the groups, when they're doing loose groups. That's when they seem to buff it up and down. They seem more freer. When they're in the V formations, it's almost as if we got serious business and boom, we're going. Because they don't buff it up and down like that. They're just fixed in the formation, dead still. They're just locked in, and they go. Usually 5 to 7 objects in the V formations that I've seen. No doubt there are larger ones, but this is the difference between the boomerang shape formation and the V formation. The boomerang shape formations seem to have more objects in them. They seem to take up a different strategy of formation. When there's a lot of objects, like the one with the 12 to 14 objects, it was in a more boomerang formation, going at a moderate speed. They could do any speed they like, but the ones in the tight V formation is usually 5 to 7 objects that I've seen. Now, I've seen, say, groups of just 2. One in particular group was heading south, and one object was in a straight line trajectory, and the other one was around it like this. It was just bouncing around it. It's like you're walking along the street and a little puppy dog jumped up and around your feet. It was sort of like that playing, you know. So I don't know why they do that, but they have a tendency to do that. And I also saw that with a group of 3 on the 19th of this month, just not long ago. Quite high altitude, and there was 3 in a triangle formation. I started the video camera, but now I'm putting the camera up to my eye and observing them, not looking through the camera, but observing them through this other eye. So I can see them in real life, plus I've got the video on them, and hopefully getting them in on the video, but not too much zoom, so I don't lose them. And they started to do the same thing. One of them stayed in a straight line, and the other 2 were bouncing around like this, just playing, you know, as if they say, hey, look at this down here, you know, having a real good time. It's incredible how they do that, you know. They do it, I don't know why they do it. They either do it because they're having a good time, they're enjoying themselves. Like we hear about the abduction thing, and they're doing all the wrong things, but by observing the flight characteristics of their craft, I mean, if they were really serious things, why would they bounce around, you know? Like, as if they're just having a ball, you know? We're down on Earth. Hey, look at this. They seem to be so playful with one another, you know? They do it because they can do it, but they do it because they want to do it as well, I say. So I've got a bit of footage there. I haven't got much of the V formations because they're such high altitude, and they're very, very quick. But I have got a little glimpse of one there. I'll play. It'll repeat a couple of times, and you should be able to see it. I'll point whereabouts on the screen. You'll see it. And then these orange, golden, yellow-orange UFOs come around. They were low altitude, slow moving, like a golden colour UFO, and they were seen also up around North Queensland, Townsville. Coffs Harbour had reports, and I've seen quite a number in Grafton, and they'd been seen in Taree, possibly Sydney, and possibly Tasmania, and Kangaroo Island was on the news over there. The school group of kids videoed them over there. So they were all over Australia, basically, you know. And I had these sort of going directly overhead, and at one time I had to lay on my back to get, because it was going like this, and to get a good video of it I laid on my back, but then I started to shake, of course, because it was a bit overwhelming, you know. I thought it was anyway. I didn't at the time, but it must have been because I started to shake, and I've done that with a couple of close ones. I don't know why. And these would come 8 o'clock. I've got them on the video there, and I've got the video for sale up there for $25. It's got all this full sequence of these objects. And 8 o'clock Saturday night, right over the middle of Grafton, here's this big, bright, yellow-orange UFO just slowly drifting over town. You know, it's doing about 20 to 40 kilometres an hour, that's all. Others have done, I'd estimate, 70 kilometres, mostly very slow. And there's bright, unusual thing, and they're just drifting like that, you know. People have seen them. The taxi drivers are all out there looking at them, you know. They're all looking at them. One night, one weekend I was away up north, and I got back, and they told me that half of one street was out looking at these all over the Clarence River. Police were there. Everything was happening, you know, and I was away. But everybody, a lot of people were seeing them. So, not just me. But they're just slow there, and they're bold. They don't care who sees them, you know. But they're only small. They were probably about 2 foot in diameter, and probably 10 inches high or so. And the light from them was what I call radiant, because it was, the light looked like it was sort of alive. It was little spikes, and it was sort of a living light, you know, front and top, front and back, all the way around it. And when it was up close, one really close one, it was a bronzy colour. It was like a bronzy colour, but it didn't shine down on the trees or on the ground. The light was fully self-contained within itself. With something that bright, you'd think that it'd throw light on the ground or the tops of the trees, but it didn't. It was all self-contained in the light, with no reflection on the ground. And it was just amazing. Incredible technology, whatever it is. But when it gets about half a kilometre away, these golden UFOs, they almost be called pink. You could almost, if someone said describe the colour, you could almost say pink. And then as it got further away, the light became white. It lost its colour visually. And one night I got on video there was a double one on top of the other. And it was very, very bright. It started about half a kilometre away from me, slightly drifted over Grafton. And when it got in the centre of Grafton, I thought someone must have fired, it sounded like somebody had fired a rifle. The UFO didn't react, but the birds on the river started squawking just in the little gully where they near me. They started to squawk, so the shot reacted with the birds, or the birds reacted with the shot, you know. And then when the UFO, this particular one, went a bit further south of Grafton, on the video, I'll turn the volume up so you can hear it. The moment it went out, there was another shot. So I thought, that's interesting, you know. Did the shot come from the object, or was it ground-based? So I played the video over again, turned the volume up again, and there's 3 times when UFOs, these orange UFOs went out. At the moment that went out, there was a shot. So it's quite possible that is a mini sonic boom type thing from the object. That's a possibility. So what I'm doing now is trying to analyse the audio file, get a fingerprint of it, a digital fingerprint of it, to try and duplicate that, whether from rifle fire. When I go out west, I can get some gelignite up on a balloon and blow it up in the air, sort of thing, to see if it's coming from an air-based thing. And I've got a audio fingerprint of a skyrocket
explosion, so that's an airborne one. It's nothing like that. I've got graphics on the video there that you'll see, and I'll explain the difference, and you'll just see how different it is. But that's a continuing bit of research, but it's quite amazing. And if that's coming from the object, well, it opens other doorways of questions, you know. Also, around at that period of time, there was mysterious strobing lights in the sky. I know that satellites, you know, I'm familiar with aircraft, and I've seen hundreds or even thousands of satellites, but these were different. And I'm aware that satellites sometimes when they tumble in space, they'll go on and off, blink. But these ones that were orbiting the Earth, they would travel a great distance in high altitude, a fair distance, before they'd just slowly flare up and flare back down again like that. But they seemed to be long objects, and the whole object seemed to flare up, not as if it was a light on an object. And then it'd travel too far, it'd have to travel too far. If it was a plane, they've got to blink more than that, you know. It was extremely high anyway. But there was those sorts of things circling around, going in all directions except east to west, where satellites don't go. So maybe it was some sort of satellite, but there was a brilliant strobing, one single strobe flashes of white light in the sky that went down the riverbank one night just to see if I could see something coming over of the flight path in April. And this brilliant flash at high altitude almost lit all the ground up around me. And I don't know what it was. It was extremely bright white flash of light. And then there was other things. The smallest UFO I saw during the April flat was about the golf ball size. I saw something coming towards me, and at low altitude, when it was going away, I was able to fix my eyes on it to get a look at it, and it wasn't travelling all that fast, but fairly fast. And it was the khaki green in colour, covered with a silvery haze or silvery sheen, with a dim halo or corona of light around it, like a hazy light around it. And that was unusual because of the size of it. And it was really only there because you take the line of sight, it's only there. And I've got to focus on the sheen on it, so it wasn't a long way away. This is one thing with sky watching. It's hard to determine size and distance, but you've got to, if you can get it at like the angle it comes in and the angle it goes out, you've got a chance, if it's at low altitude, to figure out, well, you've got to then just estimate how far away from you it is in the middle. You just draw a line between the two. But anyway, that's another story. So if you like, we'll start the video, and can we dim the lights down, please? This is a group at a distance. Now, these are fairly pixelised because I only scanned in at 1200 dpi. I'd like to go at least double that to get a closer look at them. But I've learnt even more since I did these, so the next batch of doing these will probably come out a lot better. That's the same group, slightly more enhanced. This is the trouble with digital stuff. You get it very pixelised if it's a great distance away, because the less pixels illuminated, the less chance of getting a clear picture. So you've got to sort of have a happy medium between the zooming power of the lens that you use if you're going to enhance or play around with the images that you get from... You see that one's got a slight trail. These are taken at night. And that one, you can see a slight trail behind it. These have just passed overhead, but they've left that typical trail that you've seen there. They don't look like UFOs, but they are. And they've left this trail here behind the object. And some of the night shots I took, there was an overcast sky, and you're able to see the object silhouetted against an overcast sky. That's just a group at a distance. You can see a slight saucer shape in these two here. But being so far away and using only a 30th of a second, you've got to be lucky to get anything
and I had to delve, as I say, delve into the emulsion of the film to try and get anything at all. They're not stars. I've deliberately photographed stars and seen the difference, and I'll show you what the difference between like aircraft landing lights and a UFO by the different colours. That's a UFO from underneath. This dark non-light reflecting area in here with the white part in the centre has been photographed in other UFOs overseas. These aren't the true colours, that's the haze around the craft. The blue and the red depicts possibly a different density of the colour. The UFO was going in this direction. So it's probably the different density of the surrounding light or the ionisation of the air around it doing the different colour. All I saw was this white light here, and because I didn't see, and a different image of that, there was a dish-shaped thing in there. It doesn't show up very clear, because that's, and this here is the white haze and the overcast sky in the back. It might not look like a true photograph that you see, but it's digitised and it's zoomed up probably from 1600 to probably 4000%. This is one I'll probably get rid of because it really doesn't show anything. But this, the red part there is actually the white haze. I've changed the colour of that just by using some of the features on the software, which shows there's a variation in the background and this here. There's a slight variation. This red colour is in front of that background, so you're able, it changes colour. It just shows the different density in the light. This is an underneath, all I saw was that light there. I didn't see these lights. This is underneath one object. This is probably features on underneath of the craft. This is enhanced up in a minute and you'll see it a little clearer. But this one is enlarged quite a bit, but they were flying directly overhead. And mostly at a very dim colour. That's enhanced a little further, and you can see this is the overcast night, cloudy sky, this blue area here, but you can see there's an outline where there's no cloud there. That's part of it, but this big pixel here is because of the zooming factor of the software I was using. But the object is all in here, and it's blocked out the night sky in that black area there. And these lights here must be a feature on the outside. That's the same one, enhanced a little bit more to bring up the colour. But a higher resolution scanning in of this image would probably show more detail, or these square blocks of colour would become more round, and you'd be able to see more of the features. But there's really nowhere you can go and learn how to do all this. You've got to find the software yourself and experiment, and that takes a lot of time and effort and a lot of mistakes probably, but next time I would probably do a better job, but we've got something to work with anyway. This is probably two separate lights, but because of the high pixelization it's blended into one. You can see that's background. That could even be other objects in the distance there. You can tell by the way that they enlarge up a bit when the stars are a lot different. That's two objects by the look of it, and there's a shape under there, this one here, under that light of another object, but that light was firstly shining right at me and fairly close up, these ones. So a higher resolution probably bring out more detail again. They were travelling pretty quick, most of these. That's probably another one I'll dispose of if I can't get a higher resolution, better image of it, because that could even be a star because it's only two colours. I took, as I say, 34 photos. I've got the photos worked out, but I don't know, like, I might do a group of 12 photos, I can't remember which object was which, because it's not as if I took two or three photos you could then remember, but with taking so many in quick succession, it's a bit hard to remember exactly. That's another object there.
just the bright light in the centre. It's obvious in the centre of this one was all that I was able to see, because they go over so quickly. You didn't see any. None of this was illuminated. That's only come out with the enhancement, showing must have been very faint illumination on the object, and it's come out with when you really get into the enhancing of it. There's three objects, but on this one I had a diffraction grading grid over it, trying to get the spectrum of these lights, and it's thrown a double image down here, no actual spectrum, but it's duplicated the image on the bottom. So some of them were that close, so I put the diffraction grading lens on to try and get the spectrum, which we can tell all different sort of, the type of light and the temperature and all that, which I don't think any civilian's ever done before, but we'll learn a lot more anyway. That was just a bright light handy, but you can see the outline of a craft in there. That's enhanced up in a minute, but that white light was probably 2.5 foot in diameter. What surprised me with these UFOs, these discs, was their small size. One group went over, had 60 objects in it, and the discs were only about a metre, a bit over a metre in diameter. How do you fit, a crew in something that small? That's the same object enhanced a bit around there. And they must be crewed. It was crewed because they were all bumping up and down in formation, and they're doing something. They're not remotely controlled somewhere. The compressed mass or something, a larger craft compressed mass, because if you saw a formation of 60 objects in full size, 30 odd foot disc, the place would freak out, That's the UFO there that's at a fair distance, and it's leaving a trail behind it as well. But high resolution should be able to see more of the disc shape in that. Yeah, the size, that was incredible. They've got to be intelligently controlled, and that's an aircraft coming in with its landing lights, and that's the aircraft landing light down is throwing out the beam, but it's only flat colours. It's got two colours. Same with the stars. They're very flat in colour. You won't get the multicolour variations, and that's how you can tell the difference between if it's a star or an ambient, a light of man-made light. You'll only get these flat colours. And it's a good experiment if you're working with images like this. This was one of a close one, but it's highly pixelised, of a UFO that flew over the house, group of 6, 3 houses away. And they were doing this same flight pattern, just white lights, almost over my backyard practically. And I took a couple of photos of them, and you'll see the difference in the colours in this one too when it's enhanced up. That's in the same group. This is 2 of the other objects in the same group. You can't see any disc shape in it, but that's what the lights came out like, and they're leaving this trail as well. It must be ionised air trail or something, but it's a trail of some sort. But as I say, higher resolution scanning of these images could bring out a much better picture, but there's definitely something there. That's the best you can do at 35mm, so if you're going to photograph UFOs, use video. That's that previous one before, false colour enhanced, to show you all the ionised air and the haze around the objects. That colour, different colours represents slightly different temperatures or brightness or density of that haze. Might be, it seems to, I don't fully understand the scientific side of it, but it does without manipulating anything within the computer itself to get the colours. I did that one again, and there's actually 2 objects there. They're blended in the enlarging. There's 2 objects there, so there's a group of about 6 of them altogether coming in over the cemetery area from the boat ramp north of Grafton, turned around about 3 houses down from me and went back again. And just bouncing up and down like this, having a good old play. That's the silhouette of an object against the overcast night sky, and only this light was seen at the time, that shape doesn't mean anything. The shape, I don't say that's the shape of the object, but it's just with the lower resolution digital zooming and pixelization, you do get distortion when it's a long way away, because you've only got a small amount of pixels to work with. That's an interesting one, because it looks like that light is detached from here, but that could well be in the digital zooming software, just something that's happened, light against dark to get the contrast. So I'm not saying that's exactly how it would have looked, because this block has been lost in the computer imaging as well. So, but there's definitely something there, as I say, that needs more work as well. There was one object up near the Southern Cross, I think it was, or Ursula Minor constellation. It was a yellowish object moving, looked like it was right out in space. I took one photograph, and this is how it enlarged up. It was self-illuminated, and it just faded out and didn't come back again. You know, it wasn't a satellite. The way that it enlarged up meant that it was either not as far out in space as what I imagined, or it was huge. And that's a donut sort of shaped UFO. I only saw the white light, but against this that's the overcast night sky. Had to really dig deep into the emulsion of the film to get this out, and you can see a bit of a trail there behind there as well. But I was lucky to even get any images, and particularly something like this. If you saw the photos I had to work with, you'd say you won't get anything out of those. But that's what came out of it. Unfortunately, I didn't get brilliant postcard type photos, but you can't help it. That's a photograph these off my laptop, and it just had to reset. That was all I saw was a white light again, and an object silhouetted against the night sky. If the sky would have been clear, no clouds, I wouldn't have got any of this silhouetting against the night sky. It's non-light reflecting the basic craft when they want to be. They're not always. Sometimes the whole craft glows, something that's what I mean by the different speeds, they put in different gear, and the whole craft changes when they want to do whatever speed or whatever they want to do. That's how they seem to be like that, to be able to do it. That's one object around here. It's also a dark centre with a illuminated spot right in the middle. That was the main light there. This one I'll go right into in a minute with other photos, and there's some interesting features on it. But didn't see any of these illuminations on the craft. It must have been just dimly lit. This was an object a little to the east of me going south, and that's the actual object there. But that hazy area there is not the true colour. That was the white haze that's enhanced up to get a bit of contrast against the object. It was a different temperature or a different density to the object, therefore it come up a different colour. That's just how the software works to get your variation, so you can see the features of the craft or surrounding air. This one is another group of objects. The objects, it's not a V form, a triangular shape, the object. That's just that white haze around it, but I've changed colour just to get a bit of contrast. But they're the objects in there. And you get a bit of a slight movement because they're travelling pretty quick. 30th of a second, you're going to get some blurring. That was an extreme distance away, or high altitude. And you can see the blackout, that's an outline of a craft there. And that's the centre illumination there. With this digital process, very brilliant light, especially when it's on small pixels, but breaks up into black and white like that. You get very deep pixelization, particularly when it's very bright, and that can't be avoided. But you can paint over these things and beautify them up a bit if you wanted to, but these aren't touched, only two at the end. This one I sent to a friend in America, a contact in America, and it was a bit different to the others, and this is how he sent it back, and he wouldn't tell me what software he used to do it or anything. So I said, oh yeah, pretty picture. but it was different. It was longer, and it sort of almost looked hollow from underneath. That's an underneath shot of it. But I want to eventually do a video of all these slides and put a video together including all this and how I did it all and everything one day. That's that back into this one we had before, and we'll look closer into this area in here and just have a see what that feature is. I'm trying to zoom in further to see what features we can get, but I don't say what you see here is 100% exactly what's there, but it's food for thought, and if it's a possibility, well, it's interesting anyway. A closer look at the dark area there, that seems to be a feature of a lot of UFOs, well, some UFOs, I don't know about all of them, with this brightly illuminated piece in the middle. What that is, a dancer you would probably say that's the telescope underneath the craft where optical observations are made. Possibly, that's what he'd probably say with his type of craft. And whether this is the same or not, I'm not too sure. But it seems to be a feature that's taken from around the world. Now, I'm not saying that what you're seeing there is exactly what it looks like, but it looks like there's a couple of dark eyes here and possibly a couple of dark eyes there, but I'm not saying that's what it is, but it's just a feature that's been zoomed in, and it's done that, but as I say, no conclusions can be brought about these images until I get as high a resolution scanning as what I can to try and just see, because as I say, some will be disposed of. And this, I've cut down the illumination of the light in there, and there's a bit of a window, darkened frame area there, and we'll have a look in here where the main light source was coming from, and just trying to zoom in on certain features of some objects just to see if we can have a look inside, or as close a look into the illuminated areas as possible, just to see what's in there. It looks a bit like a dark window frame around here, and the pixelization's broken up badly, as I said, because of the very brightness of the light. I had to cut the brightness of the light right back, but there seems to be a feature of something in there looking out through a sort of porthole or something. This is let the imagination go a bit, you know. You've got to. We're not trying to paint a picture into it. We're just sort of trying to see, well, could that be worth pursuing at a higher resolution? And that's a bit closer zoom into it. I'm not saying that's somebody's face, but I'm saying it could be a feature inside the UFO where the light source is. The light source was mainly above this feature. It would make an ideal viewing situation with a bright light behind you, looking out from underneath. Nobody would see you observing, you know. So maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But this image is worth pursuing. There's two UFOs coming up here, and there's one there that we'll take a close look at, and there's another one at the back here. And you can see the blue, and that's a break in the clouds, the overcast sky. So there's a fair bit of enhancing. Take note of the size of that object there and how far, if you're careful and do it properly, you can zoom right in with digital zooming. And it doesn't change from that, the features on it this size, to when you really zoom in if you do it properly. And I've worked out how to do it the best that I can anyway with the equipment. That one there's too highly pixelized to do anything with, but this one here does show some features and an outline against the dark cloud. So we'll zoom further into this one here. All I saw was the bright white light, no outline of a craft. Not until I started to work on the images did I realise there was an outline there. This bluey bit here is like a hazy bit. I had the diffraction grading over the camera again, so there could be something in that as far as scientific person